Additional information on this?
Nope. I would like to thank the Dorothy Byrne Foundation for the donation for the Model UN dues and fees on behalf of Lebanon High School.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Then we will call the school board meeting to order. Can you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comment will occur during the public comment portions of the meeting and will be done via raising your hand remotely or in person. During public comment, once acknowledged, please state your name and ward so that it can be included in the minutes. And please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment is governed by policy BEDH. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda?
There is none at this time.
Okay. We will open up public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? No. Is there any online?
But there is no public comment online.
Okay. All right. We will return to public comment at the end. Correspondence. Is there any correspondence?
There was nothing.
Okay. Thank you. Consent agenda. We need a motion to approve the public minutes from September 25th.
Make a motion to approve the public minutes from September 25th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, motion by MJ, second by Mary. Are there any changes? MJ.
My only change is that the meeting was actually at the Hanover Street cafeteria.
Oh, yeah. Great. Are there any other changes? No? All right. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Unanimous. All right, and a motion for the non-public minutes.
Make a motion to approve the non-public minutes from September 25th, 2024.
All right, motion by MJ, second by Mary. Is there any changes to this one? No? All right, all those in favor? Great, thank you. We also need, do we have any?
No, we do not.
Okay, we're just going to skip that. We're going to go to our student reports. Nora. I don't think your mic is on. Hold on. Let's really quickly. If you talk loud, it's really for the people back home. Oh yeah, you can stand there. Yeah, just talk there. Or you
So
can sit down if
we
you
had a
want.
lot. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Mhm.
Perfect. So we had a lot going on last week. We had the assembly, which went really well. All the classes loved it. Seniors won most of the games, like it should be. We had the traditional bonfire, which was great. A lot of parents and students came to watch at the amazing tradition. And playoffs are coming up for all fall sports as well as senior nights. So we'd love it if you guys would come and support. And then also Day of Work is coming up on October 29th. So there'll be sign-ups, I think, going out either on the weekly or it'll be somewhere on the website, LHS website. But we'd love for you guys to sign up so then students can go and help out around, like either with around your house, gardening, things like that. But yeah, that's it.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Nora?
I'd like to congratulate Nora, our student board rep, for being Student of the Month at Lebanon High School.
Thank you.
So congratulations.
Yay, thank you.
I think she was also the Athlete of the Week.
Yes, I
Yes.
am.
Big time for Nora. Those are almost as good as being on the school board. But
Yeah, school board's the best.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks. All right, that brings us to our SAU leadership team updates.
Great. I'd like to start by thanking Lebanon High School and Project Graduation for their bonfire event on Friday night. It was a fantastic community gathering, and I appreciate everyone that made it happen. This morning, we celebrated Walk to School Day at Hanover Street Elementary School. We had a great turnout of bikers and walkers, despite the fog and a water main break. A big thank you to all who participated, and a special thank you to the fire and police departments who joined us. We are officially in full budget season, and our school meetings are starting off next week. This week, we held interviews for the administrative assistant to facilities director, and next week, we'll conduct interviews for the executive assistant to the superintendent. Next week, we'll have the accreditation visit for the high school. I want to thank all the administration staff and students for their time and effort that has gone in to prepare for that big event. We will keep you posted on that. Lastly, I wanted to thank our amazing staff, students, and families for a first 6 weeks of school. So it's been a terrific start to the school year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Amy? Okay, so moving on to Tim.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me miss the last meeting for my daughter's wedding, which went well. So we're on chapter 2 this week, and I hoped to have 2 chapters in here, but I didn't get to the second chapter, so we're a chapter behind, but we'll get caught up, I promise. And the idea is it's just kind of a rehash of what happened last year and sort of what you're going to see in the budget coming forward. And for this one, just a quick review of the CBAs that are going to be in the budget and some knowns or unknowns that we're trying to account for in the budget. So again, this should be reviewed for everybody, but in the budget will be the 3rd year of the support staff contract, which means next fall we'll be in negotiations for that. The budget will show teacher salaries as the same as this year because we're negotiating that separately. It's actually the Administrative Assistants Association now. That's year 3 of the contract, $1 an hour increase. I believe that's a 4-year contract, so that's year 3 of 4. And the lag agreement, we're in year 2 of a 5-year contract, I think. Anyway, that's 2.5%. So next year, there'll be one more negotiation round, and that's for support staff. So the 3, as I'm doing personnel stuff right now, the 3 contracts will be, when you see the numbers, that's built in for the next year already. And then the next slide shows really just trying to show some history. It's getting so big, I'm going to have to cut a year off, but
Can I ask a question?
yes,
I apologize.
I'm sorry, I should have asked.
So I'm gonna, this is for, we're gonna be looking at the budget this fall that will be for 2025 to 2026.
Correct.
And in that year, the contract, the LEA contract that's in negotiations right now will take effect during that year.
Correct. If it
So-
passes, correct.
What?
If it passes, correct.
If it passes, it will take effect. And the way that we're going to look at the budget this fall, it will show the current contract
Correct.
numbers with no change.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So if the budget, whatever budget you pass, gets passed, and then the teacher contract gets passed, the number that will be in the books for next year will include, then I mash it all together, so the actual number will be the cost of that year 1 of the contract higher.
Okay,
You know
thank
what I
you. Realize I just restated everything that you said, just more slowly. But thank you.
And probably clearer.
No.
So I'm not going through this whole history, but you'll see the history since 15 and 17. I think those are the first years I was here when we did negotiations. So you see kind of what went in the budget according to the Warren article. So 5.4 million for the LEA over that time and 1.6 million for over that time for support staff. So just a little history for you. Now we're getting the school care is our main health. We have school care and health trust. School care is Cigna. Health trust is Blue Cross Blue Shield. There's a third organization in New Hampshire that's Harvard Pilgrim. We don't have that here right now, but so here's the school rate increases, school care rate increases from 15 on actual. budgeting, and this is just, with school care, we get the actual rate before the final budget is set. So we are able to, meaning, I usually get it right before the November meeting. But for now, for October's purposes, I'm putting 9% increase on healthcare. If that turns out to be 10% or 8%, I'll make those changes before you get your budget book. So the good thing about school care is they give you the rate in advance. Health Trust gives you a guaranteed maximum rate, so a rate that they promise it will not exceed. We don't have a lot, the only people on Health Trust are the administrative assistants and maybe 1 or 2 administrators, but it's like maybe 10 people, 15 people, which is good because the guaranteed maximum rate, the problem with that is that you budget their maximum. They don't give you the actual rate until the spring, and then you have all this extra money in your budget, which I guess is good for the BA, but it can be frustrating. So that's how that works. For school care, I'm putting 9% in, just kind of going on what I hear on trends. I sit on the board of the New Hampshire Interlocal Trust, and so, which is Harvard Pilgrim, so I feel like I have a little insight that I think the 9% is a good starting point. Well, I think I have another slide for Health Trust later, but again, Health Trust is a very small piece. I mean, school care is teachers, SAU staff, support staff. So out of our 350 employees, it's probably 330 of them. It's basically the whole thing as far as healthcare. So what's impacting our budget? I forgot to change that to 25, 26, but negotiated CBAs. The retirement went down a little bit. So the retirement gets set by, employees have to put in 7.5% of their pay. That's by statute. The employer contribution is set by the New Hampshire retirement system based on their actuarial tables. And so we got it goes on a 2-year cycle, and we actually got the rates for the next 2 years, starting 25, 26. And it's actually going down a little bit. You can see it's, for teachers, it's going to be 19.23%, and right now we're paying 19.64. So you'll see it's not a lot of money, but it's a little bit. You'll see that in the budget where it's a little lower. And the employee rate is going down a little bit too. Any questions about retirement, how that works? So when you have to add 19% at least just for the retirement contribution.
Yeah, can you just give us the 4 lines on the way the retirement system works?
And how it works? If you are a member of a New Hampshire government entity and you meet the requirements by law, you must be in a retirement system. So it's not optional. I can't say I don't want it. I have to participate, and we have to put money in for me. And then if you work in the system for 10 years, you're vested, you get a pension, or 60, whatever comes first.
And so 19.23 is, as a percent, is the percentage of salary that we
For the next 2 years.
are required to put into the.
Right.
Okay.
It's been as high as 21.5%.
And then what are the pension benefits?
What are the what?
What are
Sorry.
the pension benefits?
Oh, geez. I don't know. It's different based on when you went in the system. I think it's 50% of your highest 3 earning years, but I actually don't, like, people ask me I might call the retirement system, I don't know.
I have zero familiarity with
Yeah.
pension systems. So.
And there's different tiers, so the police and fire participate in the same program, but at different rate contributions and stuff, so there's different.
Okay. Thank you.
Mary's
right.
enjoying it right now. So. And then if you retired at a certain time, they paid some of your medical stuff, that all went away. So it has changed to try to keep it solvent in the last decade or so. So I think Mary's got the Cadillac plan because when she entered it, so it's good for you.
That's good for me.
Fuel, we're budgeting fuel prices. I'm proud of the fact that we're basically an oil-free campus except for the SAU, which we're going to talk about in a minute. We do have to pay water and sewer rates, and we typically budget a 10% increase. They don't really give us a planned percentage. So 10, we've been safe with 10%. That's what we're going to do. Electric, I fix our electric rate right now. It's fixed through December of 25. I will fix after December when we have a broker that we work with that kind of tells us what he thinks is a good time to operate. So our supply is fixed. Our distribution is controlled by Liberty we're gonna put a 3% increase on the second half of the electric bill. That's what we're doing right now. We do have solar at Mount Lebanon and the middle school, and we try to factor in the net metering of it. So basically, what we budget is we budget what our usage is, net, all that stuff. So we don't get paid recs. Well, we do get paid recs, but it's like $100 a year. So there's no really revenue from that. Okay, so the unknowns, I told you about healthcare. I haven't decided on health trust. They've been banging us 18% the last couple of years, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna budget that high or not, but again, it's tens of thousands of dollars. I might go a little lower than that. Other things you'll see in the budget, when I say teachers' rates are flat, that is, but if someone tells me they're planning on going up a track, you'll see that budgeted. Someone says they're gonna retire, there's a retirement benefit that most of the unions get, you'll see that budgeted. There's deadlines for when they have to tell us, which is based on the idea that I want to get the number in front of you. Staffing changes, if someone at a particular building wants to add somebody or something, you'll see that in it too, and that's what you guys get to debate about. So, that's all I got on there. As Amy mentioned, we're meeting with principals next week, towards the end of next week. We're meeting, I think, basically October 28th. We're meeting just about everybody on that day. Next week, or next time, we'll do hopefully 2 chapters, but the next chapter is basic budgeting. That's really just that. This is what you're looking at when you see the numbers, and information on the area tuition. Try to tell you what we brought in revenue historically, and I don't usually have a projection at that meeting because that takes a conversation with the 2 districts that send us students. So it's coming together. We got most of the schools have complied and got their numbers in today. Some of the schools have not. So, but we'll be ready for you. Wanted to mention, any other questions about that before I go to another topic?
Tim, could you just mention the date for the deliberative session since it
Deliberative
just
session.
came in?
Yeah, deliberative session is set by statute, and it has to be between February 1st and February 8th. February 1st is the first, we usually go the first day, which is a Saturday, February 1st. You can choose the 8th if you want, but typically you guys have gone with the first one, so we're planning on the first one, February 1st. Before that, there'll be an official budget hearing during a board meeting.
And so when does that mean that we have to have our budget wrapped up by?
So technically, by the time you have to post for the deliberative session, which I think is 5 days before. So worst case scenario, you don't have to choose your budget until like the 3rd week of January. Usually, the latest you guys have done it when I've been here has been sometime in December. But you do have a chance, even after the budget public hearing, which is, I think, January 15th, you do have a chance to maneuver it. But once it's posted, with the number, that's it. So you can't miss the posting date, that's the answer. And then after that, the budget only changes based on what the voters do at the deliberative session. Other topic I wanted to bring up, get it on your radar, is the SAU boiler. You've probably heard through the grapevine, but we came in earlier this week to significant amount of water leaking out of the boiler, which is not good, as you might imagine. So through our crack maintenance staff, we have, I was worried the boiler was cracked. There's sections and boilers of cast iron. If one of those is cracked, you got to replace the whole section at least. But it was actually like a phalange, I guess I'd say, in the end of it, had a bad seal from age. And so we were able to get a new flange and seal it up, and we're good to go. But we are also getting quotes right now. We talked to John Penny, who's doing your plans. He's like, oh, the plans are done. You don't have them yet? No, John. So that was good. I forgot to say. So we are getting bids right now. We're in the process of getting bids right now for a new boiler that would meet his plans. And steam boilers can be converted to hot water. So the reason why there's this big price tag we're talking about is that we would really like to go to hot water. It's a lot more efficient. It's mostly more efficient. But to go to hot water, you got to rip out all the piping in the building. That's the big cost. So We are getting quotes, and we'll come back to you, but to get a boiler that would be steam, then you can change it to hot water later, just goes at a lower temperature. So it could be used if you decide to go with a full plan. But I'm going to come back to you with some prices on boiler installation that you would not have to replace again, once we do it, that's basically part of the project's done. And for you guys to decide, but we've been saying for years, obviously, that we don't know when the boiler's going to go out, and it looks like we're getting near that time. So I don't have any prices for you yet. We just started this project this week, but I want to let you know that we have heat at the SAU, but it's not something we want to rely on longer than we need to. So
Are the boilers fuel agnostic as well, or are they
we would put in a propane boiler,
propane? Okay.
which is what we had wanted to do, get rid of the oil at the SAU. I'm glad you brought that up because I mentioned that earlier. So there's a little bit of cost there, but our propane companies work really well. Everything does a lot, they did all our conversion with nominal in the grand scheme of the project at the high school is a couple $1,000. So that would not be a huge chunk of the project, but it would be converted. And then we would have to get that oil tank out of there, but I don't think that's immediate. Our resident oil expert is Dana Airy, so we're checking with him on how you retire a tank and get it out of there, because he knows.
Would switching to something like heat pumps be prohibitively expensive by comparison?
We can get a quote.
So, yeah, so I think like this is something that if we're at the moment when we're needing to get some information, I think that I would really there's three things that I would probably want to know. One would be the cost of, because I've had to do some of this in terms of steam heat and conversions. It is, while simply replacing a steam boiler is not efficient, it is generally cheap. And so I would like to know the price on
A straight placement.
just replacing a steam boiler with a steam boiler. So what the cost of that would be, what the cost of what you guys are, the thought of switching to converting to hot water, what that overall price is. And then my thought has also run to heat pumps in that we have a lot of discrete spaces in the SAU, but heat pumps are, individual units that could be, it would be good to know what the price on that would be.
Just for clarifying question, we're talking about two different technologies, so you can get central heat pump technology that's actually a ground source heat pump.
Yeah, I was thinking
And then
ground source, but
the sort of the room by room thing is an air source heat pump. Those
Yeah.
are usually, they call them mini splits. So that's a different beast.
And I don't know from a design perspective which one would make more sense. I feel like that would probably be a question for the companies that do heat pump installation, is which one would make more sense for
Yeah.
that space.
We'll do some research. The only thing I'd say is that my understanding is from talking to contractors this week, and John Penny, who's the mechanical contractor, is that any steam boiler can be converted to hot water. So it's the same thing. So a straight up steam boiler replacement, I'll get you a price. And then we could use that later for hot water if you wanted.
Interesting, yeah, because I think the issue about needing to rip out all of the duct, all of
Right.
the pipes and stuff is sort of to the extent that we could phase, that we at least could look at options where we phase
Yeah.
aspects of the cost. I feel like that would be wise.
So part of the conversation I'll have when I'm researching the heat pump conversation is, I don't know, I'm not saying we can't, but can heat pumps generate heat enough to make it steam? Because right now,
I was thinking,
the whole kit
I
and
was
caboodle.
thinking you would just not do the boiler.
Yeah, you would.
Replace the boiler
yeah.
with a different heat system, like a heat pump system.
A
Either
ground source heat pump, or these
Either
are?
ground source for a forced hot water system, or.
Right, what I'm saying
air
is if we-
source for each room.
If we went to a forced hot water, I'm not trying to be too confusing, but if we're going to use the piping that's in the SAU,
Yeah.
it has to be steam.
Yes.
So if we do anything with any sort of central water heat, hot water,
That will
all
be
that
up.
piping has to come out.
Yeah.
So then if we don't do that, our options, and I'm right on that, if I'm right that ground source heat pumps can't make steam temperature,
I don't think they can.
then our option would be either replacing with something that can use our current pipes, or go to a mini split system.
Yeah.
room by room.
The mini splits, I think, are one of the options that it would be interesting to have someone say, what, I mean, like, there may be a reason why it's completely impossible. I don't
Yeah, we'll
think
find
so,
out. Yeah.
But I think that they are, the fact that you can make decisions about individual, you know, and the fact that you're not doing an entirely centralized system may have some cost benefits for us, and the fact that they do also provide cooling has some benefits. The concern that I would have about them is that I think usually they only will work in places that are reasonably well insulated and where the windows are pretty well sealed, and they are not in the SAU. But I feel
So
like
we'll have to just research,
it would
like,
be helpful to get,
Yeah.
it would be helpful to have numbers to be able to compare those things, so,
Yeah.
because I don't think any of these numbers are gonna be small, so.
Yeah, I think a boiler, just a straight up boiler, just to be boring, the numbers we're hearing is like $30,000 or $40,000.
Yeah. Just the conversion.
Yeah.
And so 2 questions. So if we're asking questions about the mini split systems, if we were ever to alter the design of the inside of that building or modify it in any way, like then what is the implication to
Yeah.
using mini splits in that space?
We'll try to work that out over the next couple months, yeah.
And then the other question is, would we be able to use the money that we, like that emergency fund that we set aside for this kind of thing since we have a failing boiler?
So the 2.5% holdback, with the second warrant article we did, so that was passed in like 2013, but you put it on the warrant again in 2021. And I just had another class on this today in Concord, but the restrictions that were on that are essentially gone because of that second warrant article. So you no longer have to ask the Department of Education for approval. You need, if the board sees a reason to use that, right now it's going to be $950,000 set aside, you need to have a public hearing and say what you're going to do with it. After the public hearing, you tell me to do it. So it's really easy to access.
Okay. And so we can use it for something that's failing, like that would be.
Yeah, you can
for
use it
anything.
for a trip to Maui, I suppose. but-
no, you cannot.
I'm just,
We don't do that. We don't know. We don't support that.
And the boiler fixes are priority, yes.
Clearly.
so the restrictions are, you have to have a public hearing, so you can explain to the public what you're going to do with it. But that's it, the board has given you the authority to spend the money as you need to be.
Community. One more thing, I think
Very
Richard's.
last point, that if you do look into the heat pumps thing, maybe also look into potential federal rebates, as there's a lot of money in the,
Yeah.
Good point.
in the.
I don't know, I'll do my best. Like, I don't know how that works when we don't pay taxes, but I'll try to find out. You know what I mean?
They will know. I'm sure they will know. We don't need to know. All
Okay.
right, great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is that all for you?
That's it, thanks.
Okay. All right, that takes us to the Director of Student Services presentation on suicide prevention plan.
Up by the microphone.
Outside, keep going.
Ben, they have the plan, and then we printed out some slides for you, so. Maybe?
Trying to get me to chase that or something?
All right, good to see everyone. I have a brief presentation for you, and then there'll be certainly time for discussion, like always, at the end. So the district, what you have in your packets you received earlier this week or last week is a copy of the Suicide Prevention and Response Plan, and we're presenting that to you in hopes that, or seeking approval so that we can push that out to all of our groups and stakeholders and begin to implement that. Also in your packet is the suicide response policy, which I think is going through a first read tonight, later in the meeting, which is the driver for the plan that you'll see. And then last minute, I provided you with some brief slides as well that, in regard to the plan. Got it. There we go. So just a couple little facts that, underpin the plan in this topic, which is a heavy topic, but it's obviously important. And we have students in our schools, and we care about all our students, so our goal is to keep them safe and be responsive to their needs. This is an interesting graphic. It just articulates the top 5 leading causes of death in New Hampshire, and you can see in green there that suicide is one of those, especially for the age ranges between 10 and 24. So that's obviously a concern that is important to us as educators.
Sorry, can I just ask a question?
Yes, please.
Are the numbers that are underneath the causes of death, I'm assuming, are the number of people who have actually died from that cause, is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, was that 2021? Probably just data.
Yes, yeah, that's the most recent data we have. I believe
Are
this
you
was.
talking about the numbers across the top?
No.
No,
Okay.
In the ballpark.
Talking about
In the box?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this was provided to us through NAMI. Am I correct in saying that, Miranda? Yeah. Let me also mention that Miranda Collins, our school social worker, is here. She's been instrumental in helping lead this work, and she's here to answer all the detailed questions and to make me sound smart.
Good job.
The next graphic, there's a survey called the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that goes out to all New Hampshire high schools. This is data from 2023. It's a self-survey, so this is only, the data is only as good as the students reporting. But you can see here there's a comparison between school region and then the overall New Hampshire results. But I didn't include all of the slides here. This one, the question students were asked is the percent of students who ever felt sad or hopeless for more than 2 weeks. And you can see that Lebanon, we are the purple line, and right now we generally track with the state average there. There is an uptick of about 10 points you can see from 2013 to 2023, which is sadly not a surprise. But there is a fair amount of consistency between us, the region, and the state. Yes, please.
Point out that our high school is about, I think, 625, 650. So that's about 200 students who have felt this way. So it's not a small number. Like, it's pretty significant.
Yeah, no, thank you, Miranda.
Can I chime in?
Great.
I just went to
Please,
the
yes.
suicide for teen training last week. And it's similar to what Miranda is saying, we have data on number of attempts. The number of thoughts without attempts or even intent is a lot higher. It's pretty significant. Still needs to be addressed. It's still pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I agree with that.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Tia and Miranda. The next slide here, the question asked of our students was, percent of students who attempted suicide, and this is their self-report. Again, our data tracks with the state and regions data. There's, over time, the last 10 years, there's really no significant change other than, a bit of a upward tick in 2021, but right at about 6.1% is students that reported they attempted suicide, which is obviously concerning and accounts for a fairly high number of students. Yeah, about 40 students.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So there's not change necessarily in those numbers, which is good. Wish it was 0.
Right.
But with the previous slide, you were saying that there's an uptick over like the 10-year period of time, or a 10-point uptick?
Yeah, just looking at 2013, when they started doing the youth behavior survey to 2023, it looked like about a 10-point.
So with more kids reporting that they feel sad, what are the other, in addition to just like feeling that way, like what do we also equate that to in like an educational system? Like, so does that make them unready to participate in classes, or that they're, is there an
Yeah.
educational like?
Yeah,
link to
yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, what you're saying, and I think you already know the answer to, is that if a student is not available for learning due to a mental health issue or food insecurity or otherwise, then you're going to see a negative impact on their ability to learn and receive instruction. So, I mean, this definitely correlates positively with academic performance, I would say. I mean, another interesting fact that I think we're all aware of that's not reflected in the slide here is, the significant uptick in suicides in the U.S. Around 2010, 2012 with the use of smartphones and social media. I'm sure you've seen some of those graphics that are out there that are pretty striking. You see the trend line just skyrocket right around that time. Again, I don't know that correlation or causation has been established yet. I'm looking at Tia, but I know that correlation is definitely been established, right?
Yeah, well, and one of the big things for recent times is being attributed to COVID. And we do hear that with teachers also, just dysregulation in general. There's a lot of climate anxiety and just all of the world stuff going on. I think it's a combination, but you can see here, right, 2019, there's this huge uptick there, right? That's during COVID times too, right? Like quarantine. And we know that there are some pretty significant things too, right? Quarantine, issues with domestic violence in the home, that kind of isolation is not good for us as social beings. So it's just kind of multifaceted, but I do hear a lot of all the stress from COVID being a big part of it.
I attended a training at Dartmouth the other day, kind of like 2 months now, but there's, depending on where a child was during COVID and their developmental stage, it really impacted them differently. So the trend that they talked about was our current 3rd and 4th graders and our current 8th and 9th graders were in a social developmental period during COVID, and so now I actually compared it to the data that I keep of which kids I'm interacting with, and it was a direct, it was the same. The kids that I'm seeing the most were the ones in that developmental period during COVID.
Yeah, you certainly cannot understate the impact of COVID. This one is percent of students who had a suicide attempt that actually resulted in seeing a medical professional, so much more serious in some regards. The numbers are lower as I think both Tia and Miranda alluded to. So 1.6% of our, roughly 600 students at the high school, that's 9 kids, and that's certainly 9 kids too many that had to go to the hospital for some kind of an incident. So,
What is S? Sorry, what is S in the data?
sorry, what part are you looking at?
That means that it wasn't,
Oh,
they didn't
S, I
have
see.
people in that category to give us a number, because if they did, it would be too specific. That there wasn't enough to make it statistically valid or something like that.
Statistical significance.
Yeah, something like that, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and I believe we had about a 77% completion rate of the survey, if I read that correctly today, which is pretty great for as far as surveys go. But I mean, allegedly there's roughly a 95% confidence interval that this data is accurate, though I'm not a statistician, so I will take them at their word. The percent of students who attempted suicide, again, sorry, did I already go over this one?
To ask for help.
This one's ask for help.
Say that again, Amy?
Asks for help before attempting suicide.
Oh, I did. I apologize. Here we go. There we go. And so this is data they've just started collecting, and this is the students that have reached out. So what this means to me really is that when students reach out, we need to have a response and be prepared to support them in the way they need to be supported. So to the policy side of the presentation, this is the policy. I know you can't read it, but we went over it in detail at policy committee a week or two ago and made a few minor edits, but it's a solid policy in my opinion, and you'll go through your first read tonight. As far as the plan goes, for those of you that had a chance to take a look at it, we're ready for feedback. I would love it if there was an editor in the room that perhaps could, give us some verbiage changes, some mechanics, advice. But essentially the policy outlines the education and prevention that we are required by law to give to our students and staff, and then also the intervention. So students that are experiencing suicidal ideation or other concerning behaviors, and our postvention, so responding to those. So the first one is the staff professional development. All staff currently go through an online module around this, looking for signs of suicide, things of that nature, how to respond when they hear certain things, changes in behavior, patterns, things of that nature. We are looking at putting together something that's a little more robust in the future, but right now we use Vector as the avenue for that. The youth suicide prevention programming, this is what we do with kids in schools, educating them on it at a developmentally appropriate way. You can talk about it with high school students in a very different way than you do with elementary school students, obviously. And Miranda, do you want to talk about the programs a little bit there?
So at the elementary level, we started the Miss Kendra program in kindergarten this year, and that'll hopefully continue with those kindergartners and also each new incoming class. And our school counselors also go in and teach lessons around kind of developmentally appropriate things in this regard. At the middle school level, there is, in their health class, there is an embedded curriculum, and then at the high school as well, there's an embedded curriculum. We are also partnering with Dartmouth and NAMI to do the Youth Connect suicide prevention, and so next week, there's going to be a few staff and I think 8 kids going to get trained for Youth Connect, and they will be able to come back and teach other kids and teach our staff members. So the goal is that next year, instead of the 2-hour Vector training, that these staff and students will be the ones teaching our staff.
All right, thank you. The next third key component of the plan that you have in front of you there is the intervention, and this is responding to thoughts of harm, things of that nature. Essentially what the plan says is that if there's an adult, student, et cetera, that believes there is a concern or someone is exhibiting concerning behaviors, then it's immediately reported to the building level suicide liaisons, which are generally our school counselors, school psychologists, and other mental health professionals, and then they would essentially go through an interview. I think we use the Columbia as our tool for assessing the risk level there, right? I guess my last point on this is that there's definitely, since I've come on in July, there's a desire and a will, both for myself and everyone I've talked to establish a formal mental health team for the district. And so the intention is to have our first formal mental health team meeting on November 1st during the PD day, and bring everyone together and start to systematize the supports we have in place, because there's an amazing staff here, as I've learned very quickly, no surprise, and we've got a lot of great resources, so I just want to be as efficient as possible in how we, put everything in place. So, okay. Questions for me?
Sure. Of course. So I wanted to ask if there's anything in the plan, I didn't see it, where for children need to be at risk. Are the parents or guardians of children need to be at risk given any standard or pre-prepared guidance on like means restriction, for instance?
Yeah, please.
So part of our protocol is if a student is deemed at risk, that we have them evaluated by an outside clinician. So we have made the switch in the district to using New Hampshire Mobile Crisis, and they come to the school instead of us having to send them to an ER. And those clinicians come in and help the parents create the safety plan and do all of that stuff. So it's not our responsibility.
That's perfect. That
So-
addresses my concerns entirely. Thank you.
Yes, their liability and whatnot.
Yeah, no, that's not. I follow. Thank you.
How good do you feel, or how good are we at identifying kids at risk?
Very good. I think I can think of like 3 or 4 kids this week. Like, it's constant. And I do think our counselors and our school psychologists and our SAP counselors do a really good job at engaging in the conversation and not skirting around it, and then figuring out what needs to happen next. Because sometimes it doesn't need to be a full crisis intervention evaluation type thing, but figuring out where to go and alerting parents and kind of keeping track and going from there.
I feel like what you're implementing with Dartmouth and with the peer-to-peer, significantly when they're starting to think about it and talk about it, it usually is with peers. And a lot of times we can hear about it, a friend is concerned because a friend said this, and so they go to the teacher. And so I think what you're implementing in the future is also only going to increase the possibility that things will be disclosed.
And I do think in our numbers, even it shows comparatively in New Hampshire, our numbers of students reaching out for support is significantly higher than other school districts. So I think that's something that we do well, and we don't make kids feel like they're a burden or that it's a problem that they're talking. And I think implementing the system of not sending them to an ER is really helpful. There's less stigma, there's less stress, parents don't get a big bill, all those things. So I think making these small changes are really beneficial to how our kids feel.
I have a question in the plan itself. Just like 2 questions. I might find them. So a couple times in the plan, throughout the plan, sometimes you refer to parent and sometimes you refer to parent/guardian, and it seems like we should sort of make that always parent/guardian, and maybe, or caregiver or whatever, we should make that as inclusive as possible so we're not limiting ourselves accidentally to just parents. And then on in our draft, page 25, which is part of the reentry procedure, this is the second bullet. And the question I have is, this is when they have to get documentation from the emergency room or the medical or the agency that they were assessed by, sort of give additional information as part of their reentry. And it gives a whole bunch of lists of things that are recommended for them as part of their return to school. My question is, do we have in our repertoire, do we have the ability to make recommendations as well, right? So it seems like we would have some standard recommendations that we would have in place for any student that was in this position, and that we wouldn't be relying just on what was being told to us by their medical provider. So do we have a sort of a standard protocol that we're going to do?
Yes, I think
Yeah, so every time a kid comes back, we have a reentry meeting where we sit down and really discuss what the student's needs are. And for every school, that's a little different. But it's not that we aren't setting our own guidelines, but it's just really helpful to have that specifically from them.
No, I mean, in
then we
addition to
can
that, yeah.
make adjustments if it's, one I did recently was a check-in, getting off the bus every day with the principal, like a nonverbal thumbs up or thumbs down, like, we make slight adjustments like that so that we're continually tracking and.
That's fine. I just wondered if we did have like if the recommendations were not robust, if we had something we're going to be checking in, we're going to be doing these things, we're going to be having these kinds of follow-up as
Yes.
built-in part of our process.
So our reentry meetings have a reentry meeting checklist, and on it, it says when is the meeting with the school counselor, when is the meeting with, to follow up on educational stuff that may have been missed, but also like a daily check-in or a weekly check-in, whatever's needed in that moment for that kid. And then it also makes a plan of if they are overwhelmed or something comes up, who is their go-to and how do they access them? So we put in all those in place.
So I just have a few observations that I didn't realize we're getting into the plan, but it seems like we kind of don't necessarily take a stance in places. Like sometimes things are requested but not required, but then later you're required to have a reentry meeting. So it seems like we kind of need to clean it up and either just say everything needs to be required. You're required to go have your mental health assessment because then later on you're required to provide documentation that you had one before you have the reentry meeting. So it seems like there's a lot of, at least in the beginning with the overview, we're kind of like, oh, we urge you to, or we request, but we're not. But then later on, you're requiring all this stuff. So it almost seems like we just kind of need to clean up the language and decide which direction we're going.
These are all good edits, and you have a good note taker, right? You got that?
She's got it all. So good. Also for the glossary definitions, you use postvention a lot, and I think that's one of the terms that will be least familiar to most people. So, and you talk about prevention, intervention, so just adding postvention to that because that's, not that the people who read this generally are not going to know, they probably will, but since it's a public document, probably define that. Do people have any other comments about this? We are going to talk about the policy itself, which has a couple of little issues, but it's not in contradiction of this, so we're good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty set. I do want to give credit to those that wrote the policy. Miranda certainly, and others, mental health professionals in the district wrote this last year. I think pretty much had it completed and may have been presented to the board on May 14th, if I saw the notes correctly. So I can't take credit for it, but even though that is my goal sometimes, is to sort of take credit for all the good work our people do.
I'm taking credit for this one.
So anyway, everyone did a great job, and it was ready to roll when I came on and pulled the committee together. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to.
Are we going to need to accept the plan?
Yeah, do we need to take it?
I
That was
think
my
we
next
should
question.
get it cleaned up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll bring it back when it's clean for that, to make it,
Yeah.
if you're fine with that.
I think that's fine. Okay, unfinished business, so we have some second readings of policies. Does someone want to make a motion on those?
Yes. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt the policies listed under unfinished business, 9A through H. No, sorry, A through G.
A through F.
A through F.
G is also a withdrawal.
Oh, I tried to circle, I'm saying A through F.
Okay. All right, motion by Wendy. Is there a second? Second by Richard. I don't think there's any other discussion. We've already done this. All those in favor? Okay, great.
So I will make another motion to withdraw policies listed under 9 unfinished business, G and H.
Okay, motion by Wendy, for second by Richard, thank you. And all those in favor? Great. That takes us to new business. Right, so we have the LMS proposal for the departmentalization of fifth grade.
I'm really hoping that part of this presentation will be a clarification of what departmentalization means.
Yeah, that's. I think you just turned it off.
Hello? All right. Hi, my name's Tom Harkins. I am the principal here at Lebanon Middle School. Thank you all for the time this evening to present to you the plan for fifth grade departmentalization at Lebanon Middle School. And so departmentalization in a nutshell means that rather than have teachers teach all the core classes, math, language arts, science, social studies, then they would become a department of one, where one teacher would teach science, one would teach social studies, one would teach math, one would teach language arts.
So right now in fifth grade, what's happening? Can you say what is happening right now for those of us who don't have children in fifth
Yeah,
grade yet?
so we have 5 fifth grade teachers, and each of them teaches all of those subjects throughout the course of the day to their cohort. We were going back and forth. What, advisory? What, advisory. Their class, so their group of students that they stick with. Sort of. So you're going to hear information about how that kind of is the idea, but it's not exactly what's really going on right now. So, but it would give these teachers, well, they're going to talk a lot about the details. We have 2 of our fifth grade teachers here, Sarah Lemelin and Jody Lenning. But, oh, I have the clicker. So the first, oh, there it goes. So you have the slideshow in front of you, so we won't read it to you, but the basics of the first, where am I clicking? Oh, there it goes. We're seeking, oh my. Okay. We're seeking approval to pilot this program, to give it a try this year during our second trimester, and in hopes that we will have the opportunity to implement it more fully moving forward. And so that's all I'm really going to say right now. I will be here and available for questions, but Sarah and Jody are going to kind of take it away. Do you want to move up to the mic? Yeah? Okay, great.
Sure. Hi.
Hello, I'm Jody Lenning. And I'm Sarah Lenning. And we both teach fifth grade here.
Sarah, you're going to have to speak up for the people at home.
I can talk loud.
I know you can.
Closer is better, yeah.
There we go.
Do you want one of the ones that can sit on?
I think we're fine. I think we're fine. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just talk.
Is this good?
Just talk into the mic.
I'll just talk to you, Joey. So we are asking to pilot this model because we feel it is best for our students, given our curricula. Departmentalizing allows teachers to become experts in their content.
We're confident that this will be better for our students this year, in addition to helping us reach good decisions for our future. Demonstrated success is working on schedule changes for our future here at LMS, and we're hoping that this pilot will give us more data about how our schedule is working and provide information for the plan that they make for the following school year.
It is the district goal to provide a common experience for all students. Last year, one of my students asked me on several occasions why we weren't doing an activity her best friend was doing in another class. I had to say, we'll learn the same lesson, but it'll look different. While grading a recent math test, I started asking myself, do other teachers distribute partial points the same way I do? If I teach all the math classes, all the students will be graded similarly. Departmentalizing will create a more equitable common experience, as all students receive the same instruction and participate in the same classroom activities. Students will feel a greater sense of connectedness and belonging through a shared experience.
We look to pilot this program to allow students more access to specialists and to remove the stigma about 25% of fifth grade students may currently feel when they receive this help. I currently have 6 students who leave my room when we transition for our reading class. With this departmentalized model, all students would be leaving my class at the end of a period, regardless of where they went for their reading instruction. So to speak a little bit to your question, Jessica, about what it looks like now, in a self-contained model, this is what it looks like. We teach on our middle school schedule with bells every 42 minutes, and it's moving to 2 essential art classes. All students do that, but some transition also for additional support with a reading specialist or with a co-taught class. So some students are moving for additional support, but not all students are moving at the same intervals.
The screen you see now is the departmentalized model we would like to pilot. Fifth grade would be different than sixth, seventh, and eighth grades because our students will move in advisory groups, where sixth through eighth moved to different classes. Each class is with a different group of students, and that would not be true with the fifth graders. Teachers will work together to support students. For example, all students will have access to scaffolding and the same language. We'll collaborate within departments so alignment of curriculum and instruction improves school-wide. More opportunities for vertical alignment across departments improves curricular cohesion. We already attend 5 through 8 department meetings, and that's not going to change. However, after meetings, we currently share with our team any information we have from meetings, and then we share the feedback back to the department. We wouldn't need to disseminate the information in the same way with this pilot, which means the department will make more timely decisions, which impacts student learning. But what I think is key about this slide is the first line. Teachers will specialize in one subject. I received the biggest compliment as a teacher from one of my students. The student told her parents, I'm really not interested in the topic we're learning, but Miss Lenning is so excited I can't help but be excited too. Giving teachers the opportunity to excel in an area opens up opportunities to get students excited about learning. And who doesn't want students excited to learn?
This just outlines our specialization areas for the plan of the pilot. In the departmentalization model, our special ed teachers would co-teach classes when their students are scheduled, eliminating extra transitions for some of those students that are currently moving a lot right now.
Students will experience a similar yet gentler daily routine as the rest of the students at LMS by rotating through classes and subjects while staying with their homeroom. This will optimize independence, organization, and executive functioning skills while still scaffolding for their age and developmental needs.
We looked at the research behind the different models, and we noticed that the three most important factors were collective teacher efficacy, student expertise in scaffolding, and content-specific instructional strategies. So we're hoping that at LMS, departmentalization will boost all three of these key areas as teachers can collaborate and dive deeply more into their disciplines. The following slide shows a list of some New Hampshire schools that are currently supporting fifth grade students using a departmentalized model. These are specifically schools in the state that are fifth through eighth grade middle schools. As you may know, there aren't a lot of us out there. Some of our closest neighbors are fifth grades in an elementary school, but they are using team teaching, where they have two teachers that share the students for like a math and science or a language and humanities class.
Students will build relationships with more teachers and be exposed to different teaching styles. This increases opportunities for adult connections and opportunities to learn in different ways. My daughter had a fifth grade middle school teacher who opened up a new world and helped her find her passion. Of course, we didn't know that in fifth grade, but it became apparent as she entered college and continued studying. Ultimately, this became a passion that has grown into her career. I feel that giving students more opportunities to connect with adults is a blessing. recognize that this will be a new experience for some students, and we are working on making this as smooth as possible transition. Before moving here, I taught 4th grade students going to a 5 through 8 middle school model. I've been trying to figure out why we, parents and teachers, were not concerned or worried about our 5th grade students going to a middle school. In preparing for tonight, I realized it's because we trusted the teachers to guide our students and ease them through the transition. We trusted the teachers. We want what's best for our students. Please trust us with this transition like you trust us to educate and care for the students every day.
We've put together some ideas for our communication plan, and if this pilot were to be approved, what we would do with that information. We want to make sure that communication can be done with families both electronically and in paper copies so that all families would receive the news. We plan to have available online formats for parents and families to get more information or to ask questions if they would like to do that. And we will be following that with student, family, teacher surveys to gather the data about whether or not we would continue this moving forward after the pilot program is completed.
I apologize. Can you go back one screen? I skipped it, sorry. Easing the transition, students will know what to expect. They will have close teacher guidance and direction during the first days and weeks so the transition goes smoothly, just like they received at the beginning of 5th grade. Conferences and other meetings will still be held with the designated advisor. That is not going to change. In preparing for this pilot, we proactively considered possible disadvantages, and those are listed on this screen. Even with some disadvantages, this is a great opportunity for our students to grow.
And of course, we would like to hear from you. What are your questions, your comments, or your concerns for us at this time?
So I guess my biggest question is, you keep saying this is a pilot program that's going to take place in the 2nd trimester. So what happens in the 3rd trimester? Are you continuing on, or are you going to then put them back in their 5th grade class with one teacher for all subjects?
That was I believe our second slide. We're hoping if we have a positive outcome from teachers, families, and student feedback, then we would make this the model moving forward, which means it would continue through 3rd term and into the following school year.
But I guess even if you don't have a positive, then that's 3 transitions in 1 year for the 5th grade student. So that seems a little not in the best interest of the student. It seems like we should either commit to doing the pilot for 2nd and 3rd trimester.
If you'd like to
Or,
do that, we would say
well,
yes.
no, otherwise, we're looking at 3 transitions. They transition to 5th grade, 2nd trimester, they're transitioning to, a different model, and then 3rd, they would go back to being in the same class for all subjects. That does not seem in the best interest of the student.
I think that we would also agree with that. And in considering the success of the pilot, we want to consider the students' opinion as well. So we will listen to the students, the parents, and the teachers. And I think that we would very much like to give this a 2-trimester pilot plan. In preparing for this year, it was suggested that we try it for 1 trimester, but if your recommendation is 2, then that would be even better for us as well.
I don't know, I don't know if my recommendation, but I'm just saying it doesn't seem in the best interest for the student to have 3 different learning models within the course of a year.
So the very much on the outside looking in and not having, my kids are much littler than this. I don't have any experience with the middle school model or with the experience, so very much just at a remove, but I'm curious if you can, one of the things I was wondering about, and you actually stated in one of your slides, is that research shows that the 3 most common structures for instruction can all be effective at increasing student achievement. There isn't one clear best practice.
That's right.
So I think my question is, why do we think that this change will generate an improvement here? What are the special factors that make you think that, I feel like you've done a great job of saying lots of things, but I'm not really feeling clear on why we feel like a change is necessary when the research shows that any of these things can be effective, whereas a change is always disruptive. And so what are the special factors that make you think, yep, here we want to make a change?
We really feel that this is going to be best for our students moving forward, as students are transitioning a lot in their 4th grade classes as well, and getting them ready for what 6th grade would look like. 5th grade has traditionally been that like sort of stepping stone in between the two. Recently, we've had a lot of curricular changes, and we've got some really rigorous curriculum that we're trying to deliver, and we feel that it's best for students if we get to dive specifically into a subject area and build that curriculum up together instead of having 5 different teachers diving into these new curriculums and putting them together.
So are you saying it's sort of related to the fact that they're already switching, they're kind of coming into a middle school, a departmentalized model for 6th and 7th grade?
6th, 7th, and 8th.
6th, 7th, and 8th already.
Move for every class period.
And so you're saying that we'd rather sort of have the 5th graders do the same thing because that's essentially the way the middle school here works? Is that?
We have like we called it a gentler way, but it's like a stepping stone. So what we call advisories is like your homeroom classroom, who you're with for the course of the day for most classes. And so with this model that we are going to try to pilot, we're going to have the students moving with that same core group of, let's say, 21 students. With each subject area, they would be moving through, instead of like my 7th grader here moves to a different class with a different group of students every period, they would be moving together. And we had a plan for using less hallway transitions, like this group of students wouldn't be going to their locker in between classes to get materials. They'd be using adjoining doors, and like my hallway from her room to, from my room to Jody's is across the hall, but not all classes would be passing in the hallways, to sort of get students ready for what that will look like as they become 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. Does that make a little bit more sense? It's sort of
It doesn't really answer my question,
Okay,
I guess.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think my question is more, if all of these methods in sort of in research land have been shown to be equally effective, why are we changing? And why do we think it's going to be? Maybe I'm not making sense.
We need Karen.
Yeah, I want to be, I want to like defer to teachers, but I also want to understand a little bit more why we would make a change when change isn't generally like inherently positive. Go ahead.
These are great questions. Hi, I'm Karen. I'm the Director of Equity and Curriculum for folks who are not right in this room and don't already know me. So I guess I would say the research is not robust in this area. So it's not necessarily that we certainly did a deep dive. There's evidence that all 3 models can be effective, and it is really situative. So in other words, it is specific to your district's needs. This is a 5 to 8 model, so that's something that my colleagues here have been speaking about. In addition, there's a new factor that isn't showing up yet in the research, but is really at play here, and that is that the landscape of education, in particular modern curricula, is rapidly evolving. The demands of our curricula are just escalating. They've elevated both in complexity and depth, and the middle grade curriculum, as a result, these academic programs are designed to foster not just content knowledge for our students, but also critical thinking and problem solving. They're really deep and rich curricula. So in order for these curricular shifts to have maximum impact, it is helpful for teachers to be able to subject-specific departmentalize. They can dive deep, they can access all of the richness of the curriculum much more fully because they're focusing just on one subject. So for me, that's one of the most compelling reasons to make a change. I think recognizing the complexity of those modern curricula and the need to create these dynamic, student-centered, differentiated classroom environments, really, it's a reason that a lot of schools, even in elementary grades, are moving to some model, whether it's teaming or departmentalization, such that the demands of curriculum preparation are shared amongst a team of teachers, and that's what they'd be able to leverage with this new model.
Okay, thank you.
Is that helpful
yes,
in
all
sort of
these things
contextualizing
together
its?
are helpful and useful. Thank you.
Sorry, Mary had a hand,
There we
and
go.
then Mary and then Richard.
On the slide where you talked about teacher specialization, when you spoke about special ed, how would co-teaching with one teacher work, differentiating the curriculum to meet that student's need?
So right now, what we're experiencing is that there are many co-taught classes with a special ed teacher. For instance, one of our special ed teachers teaches math with 3 different members of my team, and then has different math language from each of those 3 members to then make, differentiation or modifications to help the students in each of those classes.
So
And
the-
if it was in a departmentalized model, it would be with one other teacher. There would be that co-taught model still with that special educator, but one adult working with another adult to deliver that specialized instruction for those students.
So that special ed teacher would be with the same math teacher or the math teacher?
We have several special ed teachers. We have some that co-teach for reading, we have some that co-teach for math, and some that co-teach for writing right now. So it would depend on the needs of the students in that class, where the special educator would be during the day.
Well, one of the things I always notice is that kids from 4th grade to 5th grade have a real problem with understanding the texts for social studies and science. And so who takes care of that for those kids?
So right now, that's a team effort between like all 5 of us and our 3 or 4 special educators right now? 4. So that's a team of 9 adults coming together to make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Richard?
Yeah, so it occurs to me, will this also allow for kind of more streamlining and efficient transition between 5th and 6th grade, course specifically? So that because it's departmentalized, right? Does this mean that the 5th grade teachers will be joining the 6th through 8th grade teacher departments?
We already do that, but go ahead.
So I think Jody spoke to that, right? So the 5th grade teachers already attend, we have department meetings, so like the social studies teams from the 7th and 8th grades will meet along with the 6th grade, so 6th, 7th, and 8th social studies team will meet. One teacher, and I don't even know which one of these teachers it is, whoever it is, social studies, yeah. Jody will go to that meeting, and then she'll come back, report to the rest of the 5th grade team, get their feedback, and then bring that feedback back to the department meeting. So yes, this will streamline, will be more of a departmentalized building as opposed to like 6, 7, and 8 doing their thing, and 5th sort of being more choppy, for lack of a better term.
Okay, that sounds like an improvement.
Yep.
Sorry, Wendy, and then I'll come back to you.
So I think there's been some conversation with the size of the 4th grade class coming into 5th grade, that we're potentially adding a teacher, so that wouldn't make sense in your model.
Next year, like if we have 6 teachers you're talking about?
Right.
Right, so this is part of the reason why we're calling this a pilot. Like, we want this as part of our repertoire, if you will, like moving forward, so we can be flexible to have, if we have 6, then maybe we try to team or do back to what we'd had this past year.
Or maybe we end up with 2 ELA teachers, like 6th graders to have.
But still, yeah, there's a lot of different models, but this is to try out, like, what does it look like? Is it successful, which we are confident that it will be, but we're calling it a pilot because we want to try and check. But there's a lot of different ways to remain departmentalized, even with 6 advisories or six teachers in the same level.
So that was actually my question as well. Can I just follow up on your question?
Sure, and then I have more.
Yeah, sorry. Before you jump to hit the next one. That was my question as well, but in this specialization model that you've given to us, you already have 2 ELA teachers, and you have a reading and a writing teacher, right? So that if we have a 6th teacher, then they're doing something else. What are they doing? Because we don't have a model for splitting math, because again, if you had, it's just logistically, like, it seems like that's going to be tricky, so.
It would be, I mean, it would definitely be different from this year, obviously, with moving from 5 to 6. And there's a lot of different options out there. I don't have the exact answer of which one we would go with, but what we're hoping to accomplish through this pilot program is to be able to kind of demonstrate to all of you and to the teachers, or to the parents and the families, that departmentalization does work, and then we'll figure out how it shakes out with, if we end up with 6 next year. But I don't have, we're focusing right now on like this pilot program, what we've got in front of us right now, and then I have confidence in the people around me that are able to kind of figure that out as we dig in.
Back to Wendy's question, sorry.
So if I'm remembering correctly, in 5th grade, when they go to their electives, they do mix at that point with other 5th graders, right? It's not the same advisory moving through.
So currently, we have 5 teachers, as you know, so we have 6 advisory groups. So most of my class goes one place, and a portion of them make up the mixed group that is the 6th location. So they are not completely mixed as they have been in the past, where a little bit of each of the 6 is together. That is not the current model. The current model has, like, most of my class goes to FCS in the morning, and about 5 or 6 go to art. And then at 5th period, they go 2 separate places again, because each of our classes, about 4 or 5 of them were taken out to make that 6th group currently.
And that's why we were trying to let you know that a lot of the students are already used to making these transitions. We have students leaving classrooms during ELA, some of them going to a different reading room, some of them for essential arts, going to different classrooms than the rest of their cohort, and being mixed, for lack of a better term, into a 6th room. So switching classes is not going to be different for them. It's going to be very common.
But it will be different for some, because certainly some in this model would be moving more than they are currently moving.
Right.
And so, so what sort of are you measuring success against? Like, so what problem are we trying to solve other than
We're looking
logistics?
for improvement in student growth. So on our, where is it? I gotta find the slide on.
I'll just, while you're looking
Yeah.
there, it's not the kind of thing where we were thinking this is going terribly. We just think it could go better.
But you're starting at some point and you're going to measure success, hopefully.
Yeah.
We're using progress monitoring for that. That was our measuring success slide almost at the very end, right before the questions. Ongoing progress monitoring in each subject area with your pre-test and post-test kind of concept across class areas. And then we don't know if we'll see a difference in office referrals in terms of like more adult connections and relationships being built, and perhaps that being really great for students and less time spent out of the classroom. But we're looking for that as well to see if that would be another element that would be changed in this model. But we don't know if that would show that. But we're looking for an increase in student growth. So pre-test and post-test in subject areas at the beginning and ends of units showing.
And compared to like previous data, I mean, you've collected data for previous years. So like, how are you going, I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have a standard to measure that against?
Okay, that I don't have a good answer for. I don't know if we have like data from last year, a pre and post test for like the trimester 2 kind of thing.
Yeah, like.
We had considered doing that, and then we realized we don't want to subject our students to even more standardized testing than they already have. They've already just gone through the testing at the beginning of the year.
What I'm saying is like, do we have historical data?
Again, I
I just want to pause for a minute to praise the fifth grade team here. They've really worked hard in developing this model. They started last spring talking about whether this was possible, doing a deep dive into the research, asking me for some support and suggestions, and Tom's done a great job of fostering just a professional environment in which teachers feel they can take risks by coming forward with brave and bold new ideas. So I just want to sort of contextualize the thought process that's gone on for many months on the part of the fifth grade team. Because it is their initiative, I will just say what I will advise them to do in, in that regard. They have a plan to engage in pre and post testing for each unit of study because we have been very clear. We need to make sure that expected student growth is maintained. Now, you're asking about historical data. Some of these curriculum packages are new. That's part of what the challenge is. So if we think about our math curriculum, I mean, we can look at last year's, but can I tell you, in the last 10 years, we've been teaching things exactly the same way, using the exact same measurements, so we will have a clear measure of growth. No, we won't. And that's frankly the case in any of these pilots that we bring forth. When I come to you and say we need a new math program, K-8, or we need a new ELA foundational skills program, it's not always an apples-to-apples measurement in the short term when we're doing the initial pilot. So what we do is we try to take data to ensure that students are making steady progress, and I think they have a plan to do that. And then we'll look, the best historical data is our statewide testing, and we will have that at the end of the year. Now, will we have that 8 weeks into the pilot to know whether to continue or not? We will not. But we'll know at the end of the pilot how we can measure the key markers of student progress towards grade level expectations. Demonstrating growth on those New Hampshire SAS tests are going to be one of our important takeaways. And we do standardized testing throughout the year. So. And that's my suggestion to the team. I think that's what their plan is.
Yeah, and so, and also thinking about fourth grade, right? Because fourth grade becomes now the prep for fifth. So, like, are we confident that they're already doing the things that would help? I mean, because my assumption would be that they need some transitions happening in fourth grade if they're going to have that much transition in fifth.
That was one of the first things that I asked about this, and I was, as you know, I'm new, so I didn't understand all that. I asked that last spring about, like, well, how are you going to help, like, ease the transition? That's one of the things that we talked about, or they talked about quite a bit. And they already, like, on the first day of school, are easing the transition into this monstrous building from our little elementary schools. It's not like, all right, it's PE class, it's down the hall, good luck. Like, if it's PE day, then each teacher is bringing their kids like an hour and a half before, like, this is the way to PE, and then they bring them to PE at PE time, and then they go pick them up, and then eventually the kids build up the capacity to find their way up the stairs and all that, and it doesn't take them nearly as long as it would take. Literally did take me to kind of find my way around the building. So they're already doing all these things to ease the transition into the fifth grade. So when they started talking about the additional easing of the transitions, like going through the adjoining doors and all those things, and they're going to have them go just in a circle, so it's like very wonderful fifth grade teacher thinking of, like, how, student-centered, how is this going to work for the kids is where they're coming from. It's already so much transition easing going on that it really wasn't nearly as much as I expected it to need to be to coming into the building, because they already are doing so much of it.
And in fourth grade, I think you were asking about fourth grade. In fourth grade, they already do some class switching to get them ready for fifth grade. So really, this model is better preparing them for sixth grade because they will be used to moving. But right now, it's with their advisory, whereas in the future, the classes start changing.
It's kind of the next logical step, sorry. So they're in fourth grade with the same kids, and then they come here and they switch a little bit up, and then they go up. So it's sort of the logical progression.
But I do think the fourth grade switches up for math, right? They might go to a different teacher.
Depending on the school, it's not unified.
Right, some of them. HSK is the big word.
Just to state clearly, the fourth grade spends most of their day with their primary teacher, and methodologies differ a little bit between the two schools. But, fourth graders are not fifth graders. They are ready when they're ready, and the team seems to have convinced me, at least, that they have a plan for making that transition smooth for their students.
Okay, MJ.
So I understand that the benefit of having, the same math teacher across all students so they'll get the same common experience. My question is, coming into this though, how much autonomy has each teacher had in their subject so that they may not be quite at the same lesson in your class, are they in your class, for math, so then that when the new math teacher gets them, they're having to either bring people up to speed or kind of hold people back. Is there going to be any of that going on in the beginning when you transition in the middle of a year when everyone's had kind of different teaching styles and pace in their class?
That's a really great question. Like we said already, we had planned to ask for this pilot way back in the spring when we started our work. So we made a plan, each subject, each teacher that was going to be a specific subject for the pilot made a plan for first term of all the things that needed to happen and the assessments that needed to happen during that first term. So we've all been living that in preparation for if we were to do this pilot. We know what things need to be taught in each subject area to have all students prepared. And part of the things that we said in our presentation was like using the same terminology. We have interactive notebooks in our reading class and our writing class. We're using those same skills across our grades so that when we have a pilot, we'll all have notebooks already with the same materials in them because we plan together to make this happen, or in preparation to make this happen.
And I have to say, we are actually on the same math lesson. And I have to laugh because last year it was a gamut, depending on which teacher you spoke to, determined it was a brand new curriculum. And so this year, because we did a lot of this prep work in preparation for this, just talked about it today, which lesson we're on. And I was really surprised that I was on the same lesson as everybody else because I was the one that was so far behind last year. And this year I'm right with the, front of the class.
I have a quick question about, and this is just to make sure that I understand this correctly, about certification. So you all, as I understand it, and this is different than it was in my state, but you all are certified usually 512 in a particular discipline, or are you certified K6? Like, how does that, do you have?
I'm not certified either of those things.
Right, so that's my question. What are the certifications that are happening?
I'm back up here because for those of you who don't know, one of my responsibilities is overseeing credentialing for the educators in our district. As fifth grade teachers, even though they're in a middle school model, they're required to be certified K to 6 as generalists. So this plan to specialize doesn't run up against any credentialing problems. So they're all credentialed as they need to be. Great question, though.
Go ahead.
So my question is somewhat of a concern, and I think what you're hearing is there's a possibility that you're going to ask for another teacher next year, and you don't have a plan for what that looks like. And we've got a fifth grade parent up here that's asking the questions that we're going to be asked if we move forward. And so I guess my question is, there are other creative ways, and some of those schools on your list have teacher teams of 2 and 3 in a model that you're describing. I'm also assuming in our district, K4, we are giving more airtime to math and language arts. And we're now going to move towards an equal, is that the direction we want to go and drop extra time in reading and math?
I don't know if I can speak completely to that. I can let Tom chime in, but right now, this year, starting in whatever day, first day of school was, we have the same amount of time for each class period. And it's the first year that we're teaching science and social studies in the same day. So we actually picked up a class, all of us, this year. So math is 42 minutes instead of 60 that it has previously been. Our reading, writing blocks are not back-to-back as they were before, like a self-contained 84 minutes. That's no longer happening in our current schedule. So I don't know exactly how that would fit into what you're suggesting, but right now that's not what we're living as a model.
And we're next week starting the process of revamping the entire, or looking at the entire schedule top to bottom for next year, so there's a whole lot going on, and one of the points that was raised here was that this pilot would be able to gather some data to inform those decisions regarding the schedule for next year. So there's a lot going on, a lot up in the air right now that's unsure, but this would provide us with the data and the knowledge to essentially, I think, prove that this can work and will work, and inform the scheduling committee moving forward as far as like, how many minutes do we want for everything? And that's a question for the whole building, because as you know, 42 minutes is for everybody in language arts and math for the whole building, so that's one of the big topics that we're going to try and look at as a whole.
I mean, I think I would feel better about this if we had a plan for after this.
So if we tell you that next year we're going to team, and we're going to have teams of 2 or teams of 3 for certain after this pilot, does that work?
I mean, it seems like we're putting the carts before the horse, right? I mean,
Well, for big changes that are coming up, like every year, it seems like there's more big changes. And it's hard to not implement something to make what's best for the students happen.
That's what I was going to say. Is we think this is going to be a benefit for these students for this year. And we think that as we get into this pilot of the second trimester, MJ's recommendation of like, we should just keep this rolling throughout the year is going to be good for these students right now. And next, everybody heard MJ make a motion for that, I think. I'm pretty sure I heard that. But I think we're confident it's going to be good for these students this year, and next year is very much up in the air. And like I motioned earlier, I'm confident that we'll have a solid plan in place for next year too. And by doing this pilot, it'll give us an option involving departmentalization. But we don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to freak you out, but we don't know what's going to happen with any of the building next year, let alone with fifth grade. Like, it's all up in the air right now because we're starting this monster project starting next Wednesday from 1:15 to 4:45.
So what is, I mean, how do we explain to parents that we didn't initiate this at the beginning of the year, that we're doing this we're already into the year? And what happens if all of a sudden our parents are unhappy about this?
They did bring this up last year at the end in June. They brought it to Karen and I did ask for the timing and meeting for research and a communication plan. So I did put the brakes on for them, that they did have this prepared. I just didn't feel that it was the right timing at the end of the school year. So, and since then, as you could hear, they've worked really hard to try to put this together, but I do hear.
Yeah, we met with the EC September 9th. I think we did a lot of extra work over the summer as well to be prepared for that after the breaks, so to speak, were put on in the spring. But that was our original plan. But we put a lot more work into it then. It's much more robust now than it was had we brought it to you in June.
So, and as far as the families go, the goal is to inform the families and advise them or educate them that we're basically the same kind of information we're giving to you. We're confident that's going to be good for our students. It's going to allow our teachers to be more effective by specializing in one area. And we'll be checking in with you regularly. We're going to check in with them at the conferences in December. It's going to start, when does it start? I'm sorry, November 25th. We're going to check in with them early in December to provide some kind of quick, immediate feedback of like, this is really a struggle for my student here and there, which we're doing all day, every day anyway. People let us know if they're not happy with something. And so it's informing them and letting them know what the benefits are and why we're doing it, and then constant, regular communication with them as we always strive for.
Our conferences look like on the calendar, they're about 2 weeks after the pilot would begin. So it'd be a very upfront kind of how things are going situation at the time when we're sitting down face to face with all of our families. So it seemed like a really good time to do that.
And so if, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a fifth grader. But if, what is your measure of, yes, we continue? So if you have a sense of, how many parents, unhappy parents, would it take to be okay?
Or progress monitoring says no change. What do you do? So
Says
we
no
get
growth?
We get totally unhappy parents or
Like
no,
no growth
no
over
difference
the-
in growth? What do we do?
I would say go back. I mean, unhappy parents.
If there isn't a difference in growth, then we haven't done anything
No, but
to
if he's saying,
hurt them.
he's saying no growth at all, that would be painful. Between the first, between November 25th and March 7th, no growth. Pre and post test. Come on, Jody.
There's no growth,
That's a problem.
That would be.
Yeah, okay.
We wouldn't believe that data. We would try. Yeah, no, that there's no chance of that. There's no growth.
There you go.
That's
mean-
not an option.
I appreciate that. If we were to discover that, then we would certainly not continue with it, but I can't imagine.
A red flag.
Yeah, that'd be a problem.
I guess, just again, as someone who's a step removed from this, I will say the one thing that is sort of still catching me a little bit, and I think this is mostly just a communication sort of approach thing that I'm still kind of casting about for what the problem is. I'm still kind of casting about for like why, and I don't actually need you, like, I'm not really looking, I feel like we've said a lot of things tonight, but I think it's uncomfortable sometimes because if you're asking for a pilot and it's uncomfortable to sort of perhaps say aloud all the things that are actually the secret reasons why you might want to do this, or you think, but saying we think it's better for our students is I'm like, okay, but I just, and so again, I think this is more of just the board will do what it's going to do. I'm sure we'll have a vote. If this goes forward one way or the other, it sounds like something you guys are very committed to and very excited about, which is great. I would say just, I'm still feeling a little bit like there's a lot of questions here. It still feels a little unclear to me, like what's bad now and why this is definitely going to be better, and then what happens afterwards, all of which is potentially okay. I get the idea of a pilot. I think that having trust in a good team is important, but I think just trying to give you a little bit of from an outside perspective, not being on the inside, it still feels a little bit okay, but why again?
But you don't want us to address that right now, is that what you're saying?
I think if others had this, I think that's more a piece of feedback rather than a request for addressing. If others share that, that's fine, but I think that would be the only piece that
I'd like to just say that there's no ulterior motive. It's curricular driven. The curriculum is becoming more, and as Karen eloquently said, it's becoming harder and harder to be able to share with the students the wealth of information that they could be learning, because
then I think perhaps the message to me would be, we think our kids are going to perform better, not just grow, perform better. If it's a curricular-driven question, then to me, the sort of benchmark, the measurement, whatever, should be measurable. It should, if we're saying it's a curriculum issue and that the curriculums are changing and we want more time to delve deeper, then to me, it should be relatively easy to measure that it's going to get better over time. So I think that's my only point, is if we're sitting on the idea that it's a curricular issue and that things are changing and that we want more time and more specialization, all very reasonable, but that should be very measurable.
So I think that measuring apples to apples, we could measure fifth graders to fifth graders based on historically how they've performed. Can we measure these specific students? We can measure them based on what they have done so far this year, but if we don't try this, then we won't have the new data to measure against.
So I think, yeah.
But there never is. I'm not sure what that means, because in the sense that every time we measure fifth graders, it's a new batch of fifth graders. So we're never measuring the same fifth graders as fifth graders.
You'd almost need a NEOA fall and spring, and then to measure the growth between fourth grade year and fifth grade.
So I think moving forward, it will be pretty easy to measure whether it's working or not moving forward. But to compare, like, back to Wendy's question, like, to historical data, that's the hard part to compare.
No,
But moving forward, I think,
I think I'm less concerned about that and more about like, I think if you're sort of saying, hey, there's a line in the sand between the past and the future, going forward, we think this is the better model for the way that things are changing, and we're gonna measure it this way going forward, this is what we think we're gonna see, because, like, that's all. So again, if the point is like, hey, the past is different, the future is different, and we think this is a better fit for the way that things are going, totally fine. Here's how we're going to measure it going forward. This is what we're going to expect. Like, that's all.
Okay, I have. So, I'm sorry, just all these like things. So if we had a K through 5 school, would we still choose this model? I mean, so like
I don't know what this team would choose, and I want to just reiterate, this isn't my initiative, it's theirs. I'm just going to offer my opinion unsolicited, even though you might have been asking them.
Well, I mean, so
if I was running a K-5 school, based on my experience, it's unusual to have fully self-contained fifth grades these days. Most people team at least in pairs or departmentalize. I would say teaming is the most common structure. I think there's tangible benefits, particularly for the middle grades. If I were running the show for any fifth grade in an elementary model or a middle school model, I would probably be looking at teaming or departmentalizing. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
That's, again, just me.
And I think that
not
I
the
mean,
people
teaming-
presenting this proposal.
Teaming makes sense
But-
to me. I'm not quite sure I'm to like fully departmentalizing.
Fair enough.
And so.
I think it's very common to give fifth graders the experience of engaging with multiple teachers throughout their day. And I think there's value in that experiential
And so how did
piece.
we say no to teaming? Or what was our reasoning? Like, why did we jump?
I'm going to let the folks who came up with this, but there may have been, I would think, an operational matter around 5 teachers. And it is possible to engage in teaming, but usually what that means is there's one self-contained and 4 sections teamed. We did, at one of the meetings that I was invited to when they began discussing this, discuss that as an option. And it was set aside because 1/5 of the students would have a substantially different experience. So that wasn't the preferred model for this year. That said, there are ways to take 5 cohorts and team. You have to do a waterfall schedule. There are some other ways to do it.
So would that be better preparation for us if we're thinking about 6 teachers next year?
Does someone
Clarify, would what be better? if
To
we were
like
preparing for 6
start with
teachers?
the, like, if we think we might end up, if we have 6 teachers, if we feel like we need 6 teachers for next year.
Which we most likely will.
So-
Transparency, the plan is to, I would expect Principal Harkins to request for a teacher. And then I will work with my team to find said teacher if possible, but based on the numbers.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think also for me, like, creating something that can sort of move through time and not just sort of be like, this year we're going to do departmentalization. Next year, because we have 6 teachers, we're going to do team teaching. Like, I mean, so is there a way to sort of, like.
You guys would better to speak to the operational possibility.
If we're talking, I think for 5, so there's a way to do it, as Karen described, with a waterfall schedule, which means like the first period on like Monday, the kid has this, then that, like language arts first period, then Tuesday, second period. That, to me, talking about like the amount of transitions sounds just not very good for students I don't know how to say that. It sounds like a lot of transitions for 5th grade students. We could do it, but I think that these students are going to be, if we team model for these students, then we're moving them, again, like focusing specifically on these 5th grade students. I think departmentalization will be a better, smoother transition than trying to do a waterfall schedule. That theoretically, that's something that, I guess we could do that again as well, but I would argue against that. If that was the model that they came to me with right off the bat, I would say I don't think so, because it's not good. I don't think that's good for kids right off the bat.
So can we, sorry to interrupt, to stop. Can we get a motion of some kind, and then we can talk beyond that?
We can ask some more
Then
questions.
then we can know what we're talking about, because we've asked a lot of informational questions, which are great.
Thank you all.
No,
Appreciate it.
you're not done, just hold on.
Oh, I thought the motion that we were done.
You told me I could
thought the motion
sit.
that we were out.
Nope, not here. Sad for you, but no. It just means that we have more focus. We're looking for focus. So,
And is it, I mean, they've given us a ton of information, and I feel like I need to sit and absorb.
Mhm.
So can we table motion to at least next week or the next meeting?
I'd like to make a motion to table, and I'd like to pick up this discussion after the budget, so that we can then determine whether or not we want to move forward in the third trimester of the school year.
Interesting.
That's what I would suggest based on the conversation that I'm hearing.
Other thoughts?
Need a second.
Well, he hasn't made it, well, motion to table, yes, you need a second, first of all. Do we have a second?
But he clarified his.
Yeah, it's a motion to table and delay
discussion.
That's what delay discussion, but delay implementation to a third trimester is what you're saying. That's the motion. Do we have a second?
You don't have to agree to a second, you just want it to be discussed.
We're aware.
I've seen those, sorry.
It's the optics.
So I'll second it and give John the opportunity to.
I feel like it'll give the school time to look at their schedule with their consultant, start talking about their plans for the future. We'll be able to determine whether or not Principal Harkins puts forward another teacher, and then we'll all be better informed to make a determination for the future and the long term of the 5th grade at the middle school. And I know that's kind of a hardship for the teachers, and they've put in a lot of work. But I'm not hearing support tonight for this proposal.
I have a question, just a logistical question. When does the third trimester start? You put the
March
dates.
8th.
March 8th. Okay, sorry, I was
Sorry,
like,
when
the
does
dates
second
are in
trimester
here.
start?
March
March
10th,
8th.
probably. I don't know.
11,
March 7th
November
is the end of
25th.
the.
November 25th. What's the latest we could approve the pilot program and have it still work for the second trimester?
Well, in our communication plan, the letter was going home with students mid to late October, so
Now.
we could push it back probably.
Inform them as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So that we have time to get feedback and questions and things sorted out of the way before it happens.
And have meetings and forums and things like that to let them know that what's coming.
When is our next meeting?
October 23rd.
23rd.
After the communication.
Is there still time for you to notify parents after October 23rd if we talk about this in 2 weeks' time?
That's a month.
October 23rd, would we?
What's the
We
question?
still have time to teach.
Yeah, that's late October, I would say so. I mean, we could do it even if we pushed it back 2 more weeks, but that'd be really, I would not want to do that, I don't think. We could do it, but that's not a lot of time to set meetings up and things
When
like
did you
that.
say the second term starts?
November 25th, Monday after Thanksgiving.
How quickly do you think you could come up with a plan to allay concerns about 6 teachers?
How quickly could we come up with a plan to allay concerns about 6 teachers?
I'm hoping, based on what we've heard from the board today in terms of questions and things like that, that what it could look like would be teaming, either with teams of 3 or teams of 2 for the following year. This year, we were in a position where it was tricky to do that, where we had either 2 teams of 2 in that 5th oddball kind of group that we did not want to have, or teams of 2 and 3, which could work, but makes it a lot more complicated when you have uneven numbers of teachers in your team because of the scheduling aspect. So I would like to have my team look at that, but
But
I would.
in 2 weeks, could you bring us a plan for that?
If you had 6
Yeah,
teachers.
I wonder if we had if in 2 weeks you came back and you said, hey, here we are, and we have a plan we'd like to look at a new model, and here's what it would look like if we had a really big class and we had 6 teachers, and here's what it would look like if we had a class that's this big and we have 5 teachers. And so like, it would be great to understand that, like, yes, we have a plan for both of those circumstances, because one of them is the one that we would face this year, and one is the one that we would face probably next year. And here's how they're consistent between them. I mean, just being able to sort of see that thought together next, in 2 weeks.
So
I
hold
feel
on,
like-
so that's, just, sorry, one second. So that's not the motion that we have right now, so.
I understand.
we-
No, I
right.
understand, but I'm sort
So
of-
we,
I'm-
that's fine, we would just have to, we'd have to decide, like, we'd have to vote on what we have, so that's the motion we have open on the table, and then someone could either ask to amend the motion, or create a
And
new
I think-
motion.
I think this understanding would determine how I vote on that
Yeah,
motion.
that's
so.
fine, I just want to make sure we're clear on that, but Tia had a thing, are you talking about this motion, is this your question?
Yeah,
Thanks.
and it's, I think, kind of goes with the motion, because I'm thinking about the transitions, and the 6 teachers next year kind of held me up, and I was hung up on it a little bit. But when I sit here and think about it, I agree with MJ's recommendation of not making them go through the transition. When I think about it, the current 5th graders will be 6th graders, so they're not going to go back and forth, because the current 4th graders are not going through the pilot. So if you have to go back, I think it's the teachers going through the transition, not necessarily the student cohorts, correct?
If you have to- You mean if we go back to, I'm
So,
confused now, sorry.
so I think it's kind of what Jessica was talking about too, where you're going to pilot. If it goes well, and you've got 6 teachers next year, so you may still switch away or doing teaming. But the idea would then for the current 3rd graders may go back to departmentalization
Current
if the
5th grade-
pilot goes
current
well.
5th graders.
When they become 5th graders,
Oh, current
right?
fourth
They're
grade. I'm so
currently
sorry.
3rd. I know it's a lot
Apologies, I
of
got it
numbers.
now.
I'm not being that clear because it's all, but do you understand what I'm saying?
We're saying, like,
Of the next several years of students.
Right, so when I think about it, it is the teachers who are doing a lot of transition, not the students, correct?
That would be the idea.
And that makes me feel better, and if we hold off until after the budget, how much, I just don't understand, would we even be able to do the pilot if we held off until the budget, if we don't know if we can even departmentalize with 6 teachers?
I mean, we
Would
can,
that essentially kill the pilot this year and then wait for?
we could do the pilot, but it wouldn't inform the folks that
Right.
are, building the schedule, because they would have been at it for 5 months by then. So by
Okay.
starting in November, we're going to give them some data, instant data of like, okay, this is going well after a couple months.
I mean,
Well, sneak peek, we're going to possibly, never mind, I'm not going to get
It
into
doesn't sound like, though, that there's any interest in, like, going back to the model that we currently have. I think what I'm hearing tonight, that it's either team teaching or departmentalization.
I think with the caveat that we have to increase instructional minutes. I think one of the issues that John alluded to is that we do not have enough instructional minutes in ELA and math to meet our current requirements for our curriculum, but better yet, to meet the needs of our students.
So I think I'm in agreement with Jessica that, like, if you could just flesh out sort of what happens beyond this year, then I think I'm more comfortable saying yes.
I think with the pilot and having our team specialize in a subject area, that's going to be better for next year's students as well, because even if you're teaming, those teachers who really delved very deeply into the curriculum the year before are then an asset to the other members of their team that are going to be, like, if there's 3 of us teaching math next year and I was the only one who taught it very deeply the second portion of the year, then, like, I have all those resources prepared to help those others that are going to be doing it with me in the following year, as opposed to not having those resources or having 5 sets of those resources like we do now. Like, what I do for my math students might not be what she does for her math students, and then collecting that 5 clusters of information to best inform the students for the following year. I think that would be a better model for all of our students.
Do you want to say something?
I will amend my motion
Excellent.
for the team to come back in 2 weeks at our next board meeting.
With the information that we've talked about, what would be the plan for,
Would just,
for
5
6 teachers?
And/or 6 teachers.
Right.
The
So this is our plan for 5 teachers, so we're looking for a plan for 6 teachers.
Yes, you have a plan for 5. So what is your, I mean, you have a new 2 plans for 5 right now. You have what you're doing right now and departmentalizing.
Because I think the reality is that what we're really talking about here is that this isn't really a pilot. Like in the sense that a pilot is something that you do for a discrete period of time and then you undo it. We're not.
Not true for like our math pilot that we just did, or other subject areas. We don't like do it and then stop doing it. We're then.
That's what when you
It's
use
just,
the
I mean,
term.
she's right, like, curricularly in this department, I mean, this district, we do pilots to make sure that the thing that we have chosen is going to work. And if something dramatic happens, then we had bad choosing to begin with.
Then I think that directly speaks to why we specifically, using this parlance, why this pilot should include a plan for 6 teachers, not just for 5 teachers, but then also for a larger class size, including 6 teachers. What will that look like so that we understand what that transition would also look like?
Because I think it would be concerning if we said with 6 teachers that we're just going to add a course versus that you're going to move into team teaching and stick with the courses that you have. Am I making sense?
We want them to figure that out.
Yeah, they're going to
Right,
figure that
no,
out.
but
We're
that's
not
what I'm
gonna
saying,
figure it
like,
out.
no, but that, I mean, so I wouldn't want to say like, yes, let's pilot, and departmentalization is a thing that we're going to stick with whether we have 5 or 6 teachers. So I want some thinking around what it would look like with 6 teachers.
Okay.
And not just like add a class.
I mean, I think that'll be great for us to have a little bit of clarity that we probably would have gotten into with the folks building the schedule anyway, so thanks, just
Pushing you a
pushing
little
this up.
harder.
We're
Thanks.
pushing you harder.
What are your thoughts about getting parental input between now and the next board meeting?
I think I would wait.
We were encouraged not to say anything from home, so we would defer.
Until you had more information, so I think.
I think it would create a lot of anxiety. So unless we have a
I
plan.
have a sense this might already,
You're the 5th
this
grade
meeting.
Then perhaps be prepared.
Just to be, yeah, I mean.
If they're
people-
paying attention to the meeting
I think,
tonight.
Well, I
anyone
think
can
if they're-
watch the meeting tonight.
I
by
think if they're
having
paying
input,
attention
so.
to it, it'll be less anxiety, but if they just catch wind of it, it might cause more, like, probably some of you, the first time you heard this, like, just that, but hopefully if they watch the board meeting, then it'll hopefully calm some of that down and we can share,
That's definitely what people do. I just want you to know. that
Watch the board meeting?
Dozens of
Oh,
people
yeah.
frequently.
Yeah, all the time, over and over again.
Okay,
yeah.
so,
I don't know if Wendy
I
agreed
did.
with my amendment.
yes, she did.
Okay.
Thank you. I was going to ask that. All right, so the current motion that we have is to table the discussion for now, to come back in 2 weeks, take it up again in 2 weeks with an additional set of information plan, whatever, for 6 teachers. Is that correct? Yes? Is that, okay. Okay, great. All right, so we're going to call the question. So all those in favor of the amendment? Great, and no opposed, unanimous. All right, that's what we're going to do.
Can I ask a clarification?
Absolutely.
For next week, do I have to have a new set of slides?
2 weeks, 2 weeks.
I know, but.
No,
the
she's,
meeting-
because
the
it's usually a
meeting's in
week.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
she's-
right.
Prior to, I gave you.
No, yeah, we will, we've gotten a lot of information. I'm assuming that if you can have it to us by, can we say the Monday before the meeting, that would be great. So that gives you.
The 21st.
The 20, yes.
And thank you so much for your
Yes.
work
Yes.
and
Thank you
thinking
very much.
and
Yeah, we
caring
appreciate
about
that.
our
Thank you.
students.
badgering question.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
I feel like it's not easy for people on the other side of this to understand that, like, we have so much less information and context and awareness of so many things than you guys do. So I think a lot of the questions can, like, feel like we're doing this, and we are, but it's also because we don't have as much as you guys do.
We're trying to learn.
We're trying to learn. We're trying to get context rather than, like, beat you over the head.
And I don't want it to sound like we haven't thought about the 6th grade.
No, we know you.
The 6th.
Yes.
It's clear that you've thought. That's not what we're implying.
We got into this really deeply when we lost a teacher last year.
Yeah.
That's kind of where our plans changed for this.
All right, we're excited to see what your new changes are. Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much. We are to new business, but we are going to take a 5-minute recess. It is 8:35. We're going to come back here at 8:40, okay? And then we'll buzz through new business like the speed of lightning. That's what's going to happen. Hopefully. to our agenda. Okay. All right. We are on to new business 10B, which is the first reading of policy JLDBB, which is a suicide prevention plan.
So I will make a motion to move policy JLDBB to a second reading.
Okay, can we get a second for that?
Seconded.
Sorry, second. Sorry, I'm reading this.
Wasn't me
Second
this
by
time.
Richard. Motion by Wendy, second by Richard. Does anyone have anything that they want to talk about with regard to this policy specifically?
You know, it's funny, I should have mentioned this, I guess, in policy. Should we amend the dates involved in this, given that it's now 2024?
Where are the?
I think there is a note in the New Hampshire School Board Association policy to that effect. I can't remember what.
It is page, I don't know.
Oh, this
I'm looking
date.
at the other policy. It's, page 66. 66.
I mean, now that it's past May 31st, 2020, maybe the language should be the superintendent shall maintain.
What page, sorry,
So
what?
this is in JLDBB A.
A, okay, sorry.
It begins no later than May 31st, 2020, the superintendent shall develop. And given that that was 4 years ago.
Which does also bring up the fact that the numbering and lettering of this.
It does.
Oh, it's been changed.
It's just forward, yeah, the B is tiny, got it.
I see, okay.
The titles don't even match.
Yes, let's also reformat it slightly so it's more legible.
So can I just go back, I mean, I think Will's checking it, but the packet, mine says suicide prevention and response, but then the thing is suicide prevention plan, which, so is that the thing that was
Yes.
written here that we're actually doing and not what's in the packet? I'm confused what I'm reviewing.
Okay, so JLDBB
And that's
is,
the plan.
So, wait. Do we know if, so what I have that should have come forward for a first reading is the New Hampshire School Board Association version. I don't think that that's what we have in front of us.
I don't think that's what we have in front of us either, because what we had in our last packet was different. So,
Because it doesn't, on the New Hampshire School Board
It doesn't say
Association
the
version, it
dates.
doesn't have the dates.
Yeah, so this is something else.
I think that was our previous version, is
Okay.
what I'm looking at. That's why you didn't catch it.
Okay.
that's why I didn't catch it, that explains it.
So then what was in the previous packet was this one, which
Yeah.
was the NHSBA version?
Yep.
Okay, so.
So we'll just bring that back.
We'll bring it back.
Superintendent's whole day front policy.
That's okay, but it's okay because we're also going to have action on the plan itself next meeting as
Yeah.
well, so this is fine.
Okay,
We'll just,
perfect.
so can we table the motion?
So, yes, so I'd like to amend my motion to table policy JLDBB, bring it back for a first reading next meeting.
Yeah.
Second,
Yep, that sounds good.
amendment agreed to, yes, in second.
Yes, you have to agree, you agree. Okay, great, we're tabling. Excellent. See how fast. 10C, we have discussion action approval of the donation of $15,000 from the Byrne Foundation for Model UN dues and fees, which we had our public hearing about before. So obviously, as usual, we would like to thank the Byrne Foundation for their generous donation to the Model UN program and all of their generous donations to our school. Does anyone have any additional information or comment on that? No? Okay. So all those in favor, the motion, thank you. Sorry, I'm getting
Let me
ahead of
make a
myself.
motion
So
before we
excited.
vote. I'll make a motion to approve the donation of $15,000 from the Byrne Foundation for the Model UN dues.
Okay, and can I get a second? Second by John, motion by Wendy.
No.
sorry, motion by MJ. I'm looking at Wendy. Motion by MJ. Okay. All those in favor of accepting the donation? Great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I know. All right. And then, discussion and action, the NHSBA proposed resolutions. So, for this, we need to have the people who are going, our representatives, which is Tia and Richard, they need to know what our thoughts are on these proposed resolutions so that they can act according to the will of the board. But we also are today going to a separate motion to authorize them to act on our behalf on any motions that, or any proposals that come up on the floor, or if any of these get amended, they can do their best to figure out what they think we would do. So we can just go, if you guys want to run it, we can just go one by one on the.
I wonder if it might be most expedient to ask if anyone has any suggestions for going against the NHSBA board recommendations, and we can just focus on those ones.
That's a good plan. So NHSBA has a recommendation for all of these, and if you have read these and are in disagreement with what NHSBA recommends on any of these, please let us know.
So for me, I only have one that I have questions about. It's not really, I'm not sure whether I disagree with it or not, but I have questions about.
Which one?
Number 22.
22. Which is on page 82, going to 83. So what was your, this is the, require the state of New Hampshire to fund the cost of the youth risk behavior survey for all middle school students in the state, right?
Yes, and their rationale for not doing it seems to be that it would make more work for, oh, sorry, is it? Yes, that they think that middle schools should undertake it of their own volition, lest it be another mandate from the state and another task levied upon our school district staff. So I had questions on, number one, I feel like the resolution was about funding, about state funding it, and they seem to say, well, we don't want the extra burden mandating that it take place. And I think those are two different things, and I wonder if maybe there will be some discussion at the NHSBA meeting separating those two items out. And I kind of wanted to know what your thoughts were on that. Number one, do we run it in our middle school? Should we? Are there benefits to doing so? Would we run it if it was paid for by the state? Those are the questions I have.
I think it would depend on, you would want to look to if other, like in your region, in your state data too. So obviously when you share that, sometimes your population size can get small, and we want to make sure although data is beneficial, is that we're protecting students' privacy piece. So I think once it's funded, and we have to do it, right? Because it would be a part of our aid from the state. So if we were accepting the money, I think that's probably why for that piece.
And is part of the reason that they don't have middle school students do that is because they may lack the emotional intelligence to be able to understand the questioning?
I think it's a funding thing because it's funded in Maine and Vermont, so at middle school age, so I don't think that
it's an understanding and answering.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. It seems like it's a funding question. Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't know.
I mean, I know it's being proposed, is it Mascoma?
Mascoma's
Yeah, so it's
proposing
one
it,
of our regional.
and they're proposing that the NHSBA support legislation that requires New Hampshire to fund the cost of it for everybody.
I mean, I think it's actually one of the, for me personally, I feel like it's one of the best data sources that we have. So for that reason alone, I would say I would support it at all.
level, I mean, whatever level we can do, because I do think that it gives really good data, and on really important issues that we don't really have a lot of other ways of measuring. So for me, yeah, I would say I do not support what the NHSBA is recommending. I would say I support
The resolution.
Resolution by Muskoma, me personally.
Do we have any sense if, like Ben and his team, I know, I was looking.
Yeah, I know the team, I mean, this data is really helpful when we have our partners with Dartmouth Medical too, and they look at that, and because it certainly drives grants and funding to bring in those programs that we advocate to. So I think, as Lil had responded, any data is good data when it terms that we can create services for our kids.
So my point is, where's that data going to go to, and will we have access to it? So it is helpful.
Well, we
I
do,
think- yeah.
we do run the
I mean, the national,
high school.
the high school one, yeah,
High school
right
one.
now.
So probably the same place as that.
And that may be something EC might want to look for that report further. And, you know, as we build out the social, emotional, and wellness services within the district.
Can we ask, I mean, I guess I'm in total agreement, and can we also ask Ben if he feels like we should be supporting this?
Sure. See him out there.
Oh, yeah.
Is he still out there?
I think he is.
I think he
Yeah.
is.
Go ask him.
Quickly grab
Let's
him.
just grab him real quick.
Never linger.
I know.
Don't linger, we'll call you back.
So we're talking about the NHSBA, the National New Hampshire School Board Association, does lobbying on our behalf, and they have a proposal from Muskoma Valley Regional School to lobby the state to fund the cost of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey for middle school students in addition to high school students. The NHSBA is not recommending this because they feel like then it will be yet another thing that we have to do because we get funding. We are just talking about, well, it does feel like it's a really useful tool and it gives us good data. And other schools in our area, this is Muskoma, so they're suggesting it, and Maine and Vermont just do it. So we're wondering what you think about doing that for middle school students.
What's the funding impact? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar.
They're asking, like, so if they would give us money to administer, the state would give us money to administer the survey for middle schools. Right now, they just fund for high schools in New Hampshire. So the question would be, would it be beneficial for us to get that information for our middle school students?
I mean, my knee-jerk response is yes, it would be. I want to know a little more about the New Hampshire School Board's position on why.
If they say they have a rationale on the very.
I think it's because it's becoming another thing the state is telling us to do, and maybe not all districts want to do it.
I think they were worried about the burden on staff and districts.
I mean, if we agreed to do it for a year, right? I mean, we're not committed, presumably, forever, right?
So all we're voting on is whether we want to encourage NHSBA to lobby for this. We don't know how long that will take, right? We don't know if it will even happen, but it's do we or do we not want to encourage them to lobby the state for this idea? Right.
We did put you on the spot with that.
Right.
That's
Can we
I guess we should say, do you see any reasons why, like, that you're like, absolutely, that would be inappropriate?
No, I mean, especially if Mascoma is the one that.
That's why I said, because it helps with the regional data, so it's that comparability.
I like it when we're in lockstep with our neighbors.
Yeah.
So I guess the only thing that, just sort of going back to, I think what Richard was sort of raising originally, which is this, the question, the question of the funding of something, and where the NHSBA is saying, we do think everybody should do it. Like, they say that, it's a good thing to do, but we think that the school district should be in charge of it themselves, of making that decision themselves. So I think, to me, this is more of the way that they are framing it rather than Mascoma is just of, it's an issue of control, of local control versus state mandate.
But I think that then puts the money back on the districts, right? So if individual districts vote a night.
I think that like in New Hampshire, that's the sort of constant push-pull, is like if the state pays for something, it also mandates how it gets done, and that's a complicated question that not everybody agrees on. How that would get navigated,
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, the more things we can make the state mandate that they have to pay for, it's great. That
but I guess
they agree to.
So I think that's my question for like Amy and Tim, would just be, I don't understand what, so it sounds like we do the youth risk behavior survey for high school right now, and the state pays for it?
Correct.
And what does that, is that a complicated process or not a complicated process?
It's invisible to me, like the only way I know about it is that my kids are in high school, so there's nothing that goes to the business office.
Is it a ton of work to administer?
Yeah, like what is it, they're worried about it being a ton of work, like.
It's like one class period.
No, for the staff.
No, it's not a district ton of work.
So we say, we're gonna do this thing, they write us a check.
And they do
No,
it.
they give us access. They give
to
us
the
access. We don't get the money, they give the access piece.
Okay, so we don't even actually really do anything other
Just
than
provide
like
the time for the kids to
provide it
take
to
it.
our students.
And teachers proctor it. I mean, it takes
Sure.
place in a classroom.
Right, and
so-
parents can.
And parents can
Okay,
say no.
yeah, so then I guess I agree, it sounds really weird that the NHSBA is saying what they're saying, and I think it's weird.
Okay, great. So it sounds like, from what I'm hearing from those who've spoken, is that with regard to 22, we do support proposed resolution 22.
And we disagree with the NHSBA's.
Yeah. It'll be basically, they'll
guidance.
ask you to support, do you not support
Yeah.
this? I mean, the NHSBA will say what they think, but it's really, do you support or not support the,
And I guess the only caveat I would place on that is like, if they come up with some explanation
Yeah.
that like makes sense, then that would, but it's hard to say, like their
They're not- I mean,
rationale doesn't.
they're not going to give any more rationale than what they've given here.
Okay,
Like
there's no
that's
more discussion
pretty-
at the
I mean, there'll be more discussion by the boards, the board
Don't they
representatives.
sometimes amend? I feel like last year,
Yeah,
last
they'll
year we like
amend.
went through and we talked
The
about how
boards
like,
do.
what kind of amendments would we be okay with, like what, so I feel like that's
Because
my only thing.
there were some more controversial ones, but the boards themselves can amend, but the NHSBA is not going to amend. They're not going to change their stance.
But so I think
They're
just
gonna-
like thinking about what you guys would do, like are there circumstances under which we would
Well,
change, like?
And I think the conversation is helpful to
Yeah.
inform of, you don't know what the amendments are, if they're even going to
Right.
offer an amendment.
Right.
But I think you
But
guys.
having had this conversation makes it
You
a lot
guys,
easier.
you guys
Yeah.
feel like you've got the vibe?
Yeah.
Yeah, the conversations help me feel the vibe of where everybody is standing, because I want to represent the board, not myself, so.
Yep.
I know New Hampshire has a pretty long history of unfunded mandates, so maybe there's a little bit of angst on the part of the school board association around that, so it's not quite exactly that, but we can look into that.
Yeah, it feels exactly that, actually. That's what I read, is that they are worried about another unfunded mandate, which is funny in a thing that's requiring funding, right? Like, because we can't get it without them funding it. So I think you're right. I think that is the anxiety that they're speaking to, but I think it's misplaced in the way that this is worded, the resolution is worded, so. Any other objections that people had to NHSBA's stance on any of these? No? All right, so then, since we support all of them, we don't have to go through them individually. We need to make a motion to authorize Tia and Richard to act on our behalf at.
So moved.
Okay, great. So motion by Jessica, we need a second. Second by Mary. All right, all those in favor?
Should we be voting or should we?
Yes,
Yes, you should. If you don't vote, we
Do
don't
you
get a
trust
majority. Yes, you should be confident in your own ability to do this. Yes. Okay, great.
You are officially released now.
Thank you. Yes, that is the end of that. Okay. No, we're good. Thank you. We appreciate it. Appreciate you coming back.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to run through the committee updates. I'll go all the way till the end because then we're going to have a quick non-public that just was an emergency thing that we didn't know about. So Finance and Facilities Committee met on September 23rd. Is there any additional information we'd like to tell us about that?
or we already talked about it at our last meeting, never mind. And their next meeting is October 28th at 4:30 PM in the SAU office. Policy Committee met on October 7th. Anything to tell us about policy?
We'll have more for you next time.
Yay.
We got
All
the
right.
minutes, right?
Yeah, we got the
Minutes
minutes are here, right. Next meeting is November 4th at 8:15 a.m. at the SAU. EC met on October 7th.
Yep, still working on a draft timeline of the school start date.
And the minutes are in the packet as
The
well.
minutes are in the packet. Good job, John.
And next meeting is November 4th at 4:15 at the SAU. PNN met on October 1st. I think you already talked to us about that at our last. No,
no.
go ahead.
No, well, we just met and we submitted a proposal, and then they submitted a counter proposal, and things are just rolling along.
Okay, so your next meeting is October 17th at 4:30 PM at the SAU. SWAC met on October 4th.
Yep, we actually got rescheduled to today. Really, the big update is trying to continue educating the building leaders on smart snacks.
Okay.
Making sure kids are healthy.
Okay. And the next meeting is January 8th and May 7th. If that changes, just let us know, by the way. HACTC met on October 1st.
Yes. And there were, most of the districts were represented. And it was brought up that they would like to add 2 sessions, so they have so many kids to be in the building trades, and then I believe it was health. So they'd like to add that next year.
Oh, great.
So superintendent should get back to them.
I'm going to talk and just ask what the financial impact
Yeah.
may be.
What is that?
That's what I wondered.
Okay.
But that's about most of it.
And next meeting is December 3rd at
Is that at
HACTC.
11:45 a.m.? Like,
I don't think she set the time yet,
Oh,
because
okay.
sometimes.
She usually changes them once in a while.
Thank you, Mary.
All right.
And building, too. so
Yeah.
be
Okay.
careful.
okay, good
Fun.
to
Yeah.
know.
All right. Area committee is meeting on October 15th at 6 PM at Plainfield. School District City Task Force is meeting on October 24th at 6 PM at City Hall. Housing Task Force is, the next meeting is October 21st. Is there a specific time for those meetings, or they?
They're 8:15 a.m.
Okay. 8:15 a.m. Okay.
The City Hall
City Hall?
chambers.
Thank you. All right.
Day to be there.
Is there any additional public comment online?
There is none.
There is no one in the room, so we will close public comment. Future agenda items, board member recommendations or questions? Are there any? None? Great. Important dates and district announcements. The next school board meeting is Wednesday, October 23rd at 6:30 PM. There will be a school board meeting specifically about the strategic plan on Wednesday, October 30th at 6:30 PM at the library. And the annual budget meeting is coming up on November 23rd at 8 AM at here at the LMS Cafe. All right, so I need a motion to go to non-public.
Make a motion to enter non-public under NHRSA 91A 32C.
Okay, and can I get a second? So thank you, John. Second, motion by MJ, second by John, and we're going to go across the hall.
We have to do a roll call.
Oh, we do roll call, I always forget, roll call. Jessica? Yay. Say yes. Richard?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
I'm a yes. John?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Tia?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we go into this?
9:16. We need a motion to adjourn. I think that's our last thing. Okay, Jessica
Seconded.
is the motion to adjourn. The second is Richard. And this does not have to be a roll call. All those in favor?